locally famous airplane named Miss Cedartown. No hands, Miller.
Good.
That's unusual. When Beth doesn't raise her hand, or Wheezy Parker, I get plumb.
She was a baby.
We have Dr. Millard Greer, who's going to share with us a moment of history right here. Thank you.
Charlotte's going to scream in 4 minutes. So we won't go. A couple of months ago, I was doing some research on Major Homer Watkins, trying to find his obituary in the 1942 edition Cedartown Standard. And I ran across an article I got really excited about. It was a story about the emergency landing of a twin-engine bomber in Cedartown. I was 9 years old at that time. And I remember being down at the airport, somebody must have taken me down there, walking through a wet cotton field, and there was that twin-engine bomber, Frank, nosed over, tricycle landing gear clear. And, you know, it was just unreal. War was going on big time at that time. I was telling a friend of mine about this while back, and he said, Millard, I was 10 years old at that time, living in a Goodyear village, and he said, I saw this airplane circling, and it goes along with that pilot's report. He said, I drugged the field. So he was trying to find a place to land, and sure enough, that plane landed down there, and this 10-year-old boy at that time was one of the first ones down there, and the crew was getting out. Luckily, it wasn't major damage. I think the pilot said the front wheel collapsed, and the propellers dug in the ground and bent it. But the Air Force people came up from Macon and said, we're going to have to disassemble this airplane and take it back to Macon for repairs, and it's probably going to be 3 or 4 months. Now, World War II was going on, and that was a lot of time. Somebody said, well, why don't we lengthen the runway, and can we repair this thing on site? And the guy said, yeah, we can do that. So they came up from Macon, and sure enough, in just about 3 weeks, the runway was completed, the airplane was ready to go. They brought well, they named the plane Miss Cedartown. Forget about that. They had a Lieutenant Armstrong was a pilot. They chose to take this plane off because they weren't quite sure what was going to happen. So, frankly, they stripped the plane of all unnecessary gear, put him in 120 gallons of gasoline just to get him to Atlanta. So he flew on to Atlanta. Now, doing a little research on this story, I found out this was a DB-7B bomber. In the B designated, this was manufactured for the RAF. I got real excited when I read that, and I said, oh boy, Miss Cedartown, I'm sure it was going to be an invasion or a bum Monte Casino or, you know, real big thing. Well, I'm sorry to say that didn't happen. I sent an extra $10 to get a history after that. But when I got it, our little airplane, the only damage it did in World War II, they had to pay a Mr. West $100 for cotton damage and $100 for the damage to the field. So we just damaged the United States. In December the 28th of 1942, Miss Cedartown was condemned to the U.S. So I emailed this guy. I didn't quite understand what that meant. And it said it was sent to Muroc Air Force Base, which is now Edwards Air Force Base in California. And he wrote back, said it was probably used for spare parts or so forth and so on. He suggested I write them, which I did, and got a nice reply from a sergeant out there and said, I'm turning that over to our history section, and I'll let you know something. So Miss Cedartown may still be around in a few parts. Did I tell you about the boy who was 10 years old at the time seeing the airplane land down there? Okay. This is the only good part. In 1953, it was 11 years later, this young man had won his wings a U.S. Air Force pilot. He was flying F-86D Sabre jets for the 331st Fighter Interceptor Squadron in New York, and this was Coy Wilkes. Oh, I got some pictures here to report.
Thank you, Miller. Now, where is